This is a video on how to find the circumcenter using algebra and coordinate geometry. This is the problem we started in class. I'm going to go through the steps again for those people that were struggling. So there's 3 perpendicular bisectors to every triangle. I'm going to label this line 1, line 2, and line 3. Those are the perpendicular bisectors. I'm going to find the equation of each perpendicular bisector, starting with line 1. And in order to do that, I have to find the midpoint and a slope to make the equation of the perpendicular bisectors. So for example, line 1 goes right through what looks to be that as the midpoint of AC. So I need the midpoint of AC. And I just average the x's to get that. So A and C is what I'm looking at. -4 plus 0 divided by 2. And then +4 plus -4 divided by 2. That simplifies to be -2 over 2 and 0 over 2. So the midpoint of AC is -1, 0. And then -2, 0. Sorry. Let's erase that. I have a little calculation error there. -4 plus 0 is -4. -4 divided by 2 is -2. And then when you go to your picture, it should make sense. So this is the midpoint of AC. That's actually how I caught my mistake, is I went back to look at my picture, and I realized I had a calculation error. Then the slope of AC, I'll need. That's rise over run. So 4 take away -4 over -4 take away 0. So I'm doing difference of the y's over the difference of the x's. So 8 over -4, which is -2. So that tells me the perpendicular slope, the line perpendicular to AC, would be 1/2. And the reason I'm interested in that is line 1 is perpendicular to AC. So my equation for line 1, using the y equals mx plus b form, would be, start it with y equals 1/2 x plus b, because I'm going to use the perpendicular slope. But I'm also going to use the midpoint. So 0 equals 1/2 times the x value from the midpoint plus b. So that's -1 plus b is equal to 0. Add 1 to both sides. 1 equals b. Cross that out. So the equation of line 1, the final equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 1. We're going to repeat the process and find the equation of line 2. But actually, before we go on, let's look at line 1 and see if it's reasonable. Y equals 1/2 x plus 1. The intercept's 1, and the slope is 1/2. That looks pretty good. So for the equation of line 2, I have to find the midpoint. Right here, because line 2 hits the midpoint of AB. So I have to find the midpoint of AB. And that would be averaging the x's. So 4 negative 4 plus 8 divided by 2, and 4 plus 8 divided by 2. So that is 4 over 2, 12 over 2, and that reduces to the 0.26. Look at your picture, and it looks reasonable. And then the slope of AB is just rise over run. So 8 take away 4 divided by 8 take away negative 4, which is 4 over 12, which is a third. So now we need the perpendicular slope. The slope of the line perpendicular to AB would be negative 3. So the equation for line 2, y equals negative 3x plus b, using this, and I'm going to plug in that. So for y, 6 equals negative 3 times 2 plus b, and that's 6 equals negative 6 plus b. So add 6 to both sides. B equals 12. So the equation for line 2, I'll write it right here, or right here, y equals negative 3x plus 12. And if this line 2 continued upward, it looks like it would cross around 12. And the slope does look to be about negative 3. So continuing on the last line, line 3, I need to find this midpoint. So to find the midpoint for line 3, that would be the midpoint of BC, and that would be 8 plus 0 divided by 2, and 8 plus negative 4 divided by 2, which is 8 over 2, 4 over 2, which is 4, 2. Let's check that. That looks pretty good. So the slope of BC would be rise over run. So difference of the y values, 8 take away negative 4, divided by the difference of the x values, 8 take away 0. That's 12 over 8, which is 3 over 2. So the perpendicular slope would be negative 2 over 3. So the line equation, y equals negative 2/3 x plus b. I'm using that and this. So put in 2, y equals negative 2/3 times the 4 for the x value from the midpoint plus b. And when I do that, I'm going to multiply through by 3 to get rid of the fraction. So this gives me 6. That gives me negative 2 times 4, which is negative 8 plus 3b. Add 8 to both sides. That's 14. 3b. Divide by 3. So b is 14/3. So the equation is y equals negative 2/3 x plus 14/3. That's my third equation. So I had a page in there and transferred all the information to that blank page. Whoops, let's try again. To get the three equations so we can see them. I'm going to pause it and transfer all three equations to this page. So on the left here, I have equation 1, which you see at the top on the left, and then I copied equation 2, which is in the middle, and then I copied equation 3. So now I have to solve a system. And when you solve a system, it makes sense to work with the easiest equations first, but I'm going to put them all in standard form. So I'm going to multiply this by 2, and that gives me 2y equals x plus 2, which is the same thing as if I subtract x over. That my final equation, let's put it in black for L1, would be negative x plus 2y equals 2. And if I put L2 in standard form, that's a little bit easier. Add 3x to both sides. So for L2, I get 3x plus y equals 12. And for L3, I'd have to multiply by 3, and that's 3y equals negative 2x plus 14. So L3, if I rearrange, would be 2x plus 3y equals 14. And I am going to use these two to solve a system. So in order to do that, I'm going to take L1 and bring it down here, and take L2 and bring it down here, and I'm going to solve the system. Using L1 and L2. So I'm going to multiply this by 3 and eliminate the x variable. So that gives me negative 3x plus 6y equals 6. When I eliminate, then I get 7y equals 18. Divide by 7. Y equals 2 and 4/7. And we did use the computer to calculate that. So let's see, it should match that value. So 18 divided by 7 matches. And then I'm going to repeat the process and do elimination with the same two equations. But this time, I'm going to eliminate y this time. So that means I'll multiply this by, to eliminate y, the lower equation by negative 2. So this remains the same, negative x plus 2y equals 2. but the second one becomes -6 plus, or minus, -2y when you distribute this through equals -24. So I get -7x cancels -22 divided by -7. And so x should be 22 over 7, or 3 and a 7th. And therefore my circumcenter is 3 1/7, 2 4/7. And we can just pick that calculator up and check that 22 over 7 does match this. So that's a big giant problem, and keep practicing.